Beruchim Habayim. Welcome to a special edition of our Wednesday night class. Tonight we're going to discuss some of the subjects related to Hanukah. Being that we're going to celebrate the holiday this Friday night, B'ezrat Hashem, I think it's important to go into the holiday understanding a little of what it symbolizes and what it means and what the concepts behind it are. I will admit to you that tonight's approach to the style of the class might be a little different. We're going to say, and I always think the subjects are important, we're going to say very significant hidushim, new concepts, and I'm going to try to say it in the clearest way possible. Again, this is the first time I'm also saying these things, allowing these things over, so I ask your patience to bear with me. If there's anything that's not clear, of course you could stop me and we'll try to say it over again. And I'd like everybody to try to digest these subjects that we're going to talk about. Hanukah. Well, when you think of Hanukah, the next word that comes to your mind is menorah. And to most people, a menorah is a candelabra. It has, our modern day one has 8 kanim, 8 stems, with a cup in them. You put some oil and a wick and it's nice. And that's basically what menorah is. Now, there is another menorah, the original menorah, which was found in the Mishkan, the tabernacle, and the Beit HaMikdash. Now, these vessels that were in the Beit HaMikdash symbolized a lot of things, and they also brought a tremendous amount of Kedusha and positive influence into the world. They were not just merely a lantern that was lit in the Beit HaMikdash. They meant things, they brought down certain berachot, and they affected the world in whatever they stood for. For example, the Aron. The Aron in the Beit HaMikdash was the ark. The Aron had in it the Luchot, the 10 Commandments, and the Aron had in it a Sefer Torah, which is the written law. We call that Torah Shebichtav. And if you'd want to know, you'd ask me, Rabbi, what does the Aron symbolize? I would say the Aron in the Beit HaMikdash symbolizes the written law. As a matter of fact, over the Aron were Kirubim, the cherubs. And when Moshe went to listen to the word of God, where would he go? To the Aron, to the place where the Kirubim were, and that's where the voice of God would emanate from. And those words that he heard from God, eventually he wrote them in Torah. That's the Bible that we have today. So that section of the Beit HaMikdash, where the Aron is, it would be fair to call that place the Torah Shebichtav area. That's where the prophecies were given over, that were eventually written in Torah Shebichtav, the written law. That's where the book was stored. The Torah was in the Aron, and that's where the Luchot was stored. The menorah, that area, symbolized Torah Shebe'al Peh. That symbolized oral law. Now you know in our Torah there are 2 parts. There's the written law and there's the oral law. The written law is Bereshit, Shemot, Vayikra, Bamidbar, Devarim, 5 books. But the clarity and the understanding and the logic and the expansive laws that come out of it are called Torah Shebe'al Peh. Today we're fortunate that it's not Ba'al Peh anymore, because you'd be forced to remember volumes and volumes and volumes of information. Imagine I told you that it's incumbent upon every American to know Encyclopedia Britannica all 42 volumes from cover to cover by heart. Forget about it. Impossible. Well, that's what it was in the olden days. The second part of our Torah was oral. It was from the Hachamim. It was their interpretations. It was the way they understood. And these interpretations had to be known by all. And Moshe Rabbeinu gave this over to the people. This oral interpretation. Eventually, the minds got smaller and they had to write it down. Hence, today we have a book called Gemara. We have a book called Midrash. We have books, Zohar, and other books like that are in the Torah Shebaal Peh family. The menorah in the Beit HaMikdash, when it was lit every day by Aharon HaKohen, that was the area of the Beit HaMikdash that represented oral law. That lighting brought down a special amount of strength and a special amount of divine intervention to help the Hachamim of the generation come out with proper interpretations and conclusion and understanding of Torah Shebechtav. So the menorah was not merely, lighting some candles for show, but its spiritual value was definitely in the Torah Shebaal Peh realm. It's interesting. There's a Gemara that says, if a person wants to become wise, harotzeh le'achkim yadrim. When he's praying the Amidah, he should pray, of course, to the east, but southeast. He should turn to the south of it. And that will bring him wisdom. Why? So the rabbis tell us, because the menorah was in the southern part of the Beit HaMikdash. So you want wisdom? You want to understand Torah? You want to understand logic of Torah? You want to understand the Gemara? You want to understand Torah Shebaal Peh? Where do you have to face? Tilt to the south. The same Gemara says, and one that wants to become wealthy, harotzeh la'achshir. Everybody woke up now. What did the rabbi say? Wealthy? Now the class became interesting all of a sudden. It says Yasvin. You should pray to the east, of course, but on a slant to the north. Because the shulchan, the table where the showbread were, which represents sustenance, that was in the north side. So therefore, if you want wealth, you pray to the north. Now, during Arbi tonight, we're going to see where your priorities are. We'll see all the guys that come from the north and all the guys that come from the south. But you see again that the menorah, just by facing towards the menorah, you're actually tapping in to that spiritual power to perceive Torah Shebaal Peh. Hey, let's be straight. Torah Shebaal Peh is not an easy subject. Those that study Gemara on a daily basis know that it racks the brain, it's tedious work, it's technical work, it's analytical, it's quite challenging, and you need all the help you can get. And the menorah of the Beit HaMikdash brought down not only help to those that study the words of the rabbis, but help to the rabbis themselves that were legislating, that were creating the interpretation. The Nitziv from Volozhin brings down an interesting fact. And he says that when Moshe Rabbeinu heard the law from God, and then wanted to analyze it and delve into the law, to understand it with all its ramifications, where would he go for that deep understanding? Where would he go and meditate to analyze? So the Nitziv says he would stand in front of the nerot of the menorah, and he would stare at the candles, he would stare at the lights. And by looking at the lights, that would bring him a certain amount of energy and koach in order to delve into Torah the right way. So from all this you see, the menorah, besides being a light, a source of light, was actually a source of light of wisdom. wisdom of Torah Sheba'al Peh. Once already we say this concept, like many Torah concepts, it opens the door to many things. That's the beauty of Torah. If you have a Torah concept in your pocket, if you have a rule, now you know the rule. The menorah symbolizes Torah Sheba'al Peh. You have a key now in your pocket. This key is able to unlock many different doors now. And you're able to start to understand a lot of things that might have been somewhat cryptic till now. For example, while Moshe Rabbeinu is known to be the one to give the Torah to the Jewish people, his role at Har Sinai is the role of Torah Shebichtav. As a matter of fact, he authored Torah Shebichtav. He wrote the Hamisha Amshe Torah. Nobody can deny this. But you have Aharon HaKohen. Now what's Aharon's role? It's Moshe's partner. Do you know that Aharon lit the menorah in the Beit HaMikdash all 40 years when they were in the Midbar? Now, the law really says that the menorah does not have to be lit by the Kohen Gadol. The menorah can be lit even by a Zar. Or the more so, it can be lit by a Kohen Idiot, a minor Kohen. Why then did Aharon HaKohen light the menorah every day? Because Aharon was Torah Sheba'al Peh. While Moshe was Torah Shebichtav, Aharon's role in the Jewish people was Torah Sheba'al Peh, and therefore, what better mitzvah to be involved with if you're involved in Torah Sheba'al Peh than lighting the menorah? Once we got this far, please pay attention closely. We're building now. We're putting bricks down. We're laying foundations, and we're going to go now to level 2. In our history, Jewish history, we have the first temple, and you have the second temple. Bayit Rishon, Bayit Sheni. Bayit Rishon was a great time for Jewish people. We had prophets roaming the streets of Jerusalem. Imagine that. Anybody wants to know the word of God, you're able to go to the prophet. What does God want? And the prophet would have a transmission, come back to you, give you a conclusive answer. The times of the first Beit HaMikdash, it was like the times of Moshe Rabbeinu. We had a prophet that was able to communicate with Borei Olam directly. You were able to get everything firsthand. It was like Torah Shebichtav. It was written, everything you got clear from God. It was like Moshe Rabbeinu going into the Aron, listening to the transmission between the Kirubim. In the first Beit HaMikdash, you were able to get it straight from Borei Olam. Torah Shebichtav, the written. Bayit Sheni, in the second temple, there was no more prophets. When we talk about the second temple era, we talk about the rabbis in Bavel, those rabbis that authored the Gemara. We talk about the rabbis in Jerusalem, those rabbis that authored Jerusalem Talmud. The time of the second temple ended the Torah Shebichtav era, so to speak, and we entered an era of Torah Sheba'al Peh. We entered an era where now there's no more prophecy. You're at the whims of the rabbis. Not through what God told them. You're at the whims of their interpretation. You're at the whims of their advice. Then it became the rabbi school. It was no more the prophet school. It was how the rabbis see it. How the rabbis interpret things. It was a new way. It was a new system. Bayit Sheni is Torah Sheba'al Peh. Torah Sheba'al Peh meaning the rabbis interpreting Torah and giving it over to the people. You know, Borei Olam says through Moshe Rabbeinu, "V'niflinu ani ve'amecha mikol ha'am asher al penei ha'adama." God says, Jews, you will be different. I'm going to make your nation different than any other nation on the face of the earth. And the Mefarshim understand Shekhinah will only rest on the Jewish people. Jews will have prophets, Goyim will not. They had their one prophet. After that they had nobody. Jews will have prophets, Goyim won't. So some of the rabbis ask, that only helps us for the times of the prophets. But once the era of prophecy finishes, what makes us different than the Goyim? They don't have prophets, we don't have prophets. We're back to square one, we're equal again. The Mefarshim answer that in the times of the Second Temple, what separated Jew from Gentile was Torah Shebaal Peh. They didn't have this concept of Hachamim interpreting Torah Shebechtav. Yeah, they were able to go buy a Bible. They were able to go to their local bookstore, get a Bible written in Greek, get a Bible written in Spanish, in French, in English. Yeah, they had access to that. But oral law, as interpreted by our Hachamim, all those beautiful pearls of wisdom that the Hachamim gave over, all those insights, all those volumes of Talmud, that's ours. Goyim don't have that. As a matter of fact, that's why it was originally given over orally, so they can't get access to it. Today, unfortunately, any goy can walk into the store, buy an art scroll, Gemara, and he has the same book we have, and he's able to analyze it like we can. But in the olden days, the original way was our gift with us, and they had no access to it. And that's what separates us. And that's what the Greeks in the time of the Second Temple were going after. When we talk about the war between Greeks and Jews, this was a philosophical war. The Greeks were coming against this concept that the Jews have rabbis. And the rabbi is the end. And the rabbi is the highest level. And their interpretation, leave that. They tried to break our loyalty to Hachamim. They tried to defile the temple. Because you know what happens when you defile the temple? One of the things you're going to defile is the menorah. What happens when you defile the menorah? That's like breaking all the circuits of Torah Shebaal Peh. Because that's where the power of the oral law comes from, the menorah. They came in to defile all that. They wanted to say, just go with the written law. And we love the written law. As a matter of fact, they had the written law interpreted into 70 languages. They interpreted the Torah to say, we got no problem with the Bible. Bible be genuine. We'll learn it with you, you learn it with us. But leave all this Talmud business over here. They were also scholars. They tried to break our loyalty to Torah Shebaal Peh, to the interpretations of the Hachamim. And the Hashmonaim, look how significant it is. Their fight was actually a fight for Jewish tradition. If the Hashmonaim do not fight the Greeks, Jewish tradition is lost. And the Ramban says Torah would have been forgotten from Israel. You would have opened the pasuk in the Torah and read, put that fourth bit in between your eyes, and you would have no idea what that is talking about. What is totafot? Some African word, totafot. You would not know what tefillin is. You would not know what an etrog is. Because all those concepts, tefillin, are only from Gemara. Torah uses very vague terminology. Etrog, the Torah doesn't say etrog. In the 5 books of Moses, the word etrog does not appear. Piri etz hadar, certain fruit. You have no idea. It could be an apple, could be a watermelon, could be a cantaloupe. You only know etrog from Gemara. They were trying to dilute all that stuff. And the Hashmonaim came along and fought a philosophical war over here. They were fighting the war to keep Jewish tradition alive. And Jewish tradition is only from the Gemara. Jewish tradition is only from Talmud. That's how we know how to interpret our Bible. Without that, we have nothing. Without that, you're opening the Torah, you can read it like Goyim. Nothing that separates us. They can open a Bible, we can open a Bible. The only thing that separates Jew is his interpretations. And where are his interpretations? Where does he draw them from? From the Hachamim, Hachamim Talmud. They were trying to do away with all that. They were trying to dilute that whole situation. And that's why it's so significant after the Hashmonaim were able to rededicate the Beit HaMikdash, where does the miracle of Hanukah take place? In which vessel in the Beit HaMikdash? Menorah. Has to. That's where the fight was. The menorah, which represents Torah Sheba'al Peh, that's what the Yevanim were trying to eradicate. So the miracle took place on that menorah that represented the power of rabbinical interpretation of Gemara. It's so interesting. When the concept is, we're saying deep things. I don't say no. And I'm going to say you have to digest these subjects. I want you to listen to the tape again over these subjects. Because we're giving you over here not an amateur's insight on Hanukah. Now I could have came here tonight and gave you 35 explanations on why the dreidel spins and some interesting recipes on how to make latkes. But we came here tonight with a little higher goal, a higher mission, to try to explain the holiday on a deeper level. Try to give you, why shouldn't you know what the Hachamim are thinking on Hanukah? Why should you just think that Hanukah is a bunch of chocolate silver dollars, lighting a candle and getting gifts? Why should that be your limit of expectation of Hanukah? We're trying to, so you can walk out and say, when the rabbi's walking on the street, I know what's in his brain. I was there, I heard it. I know the whole subject of Rashi Baal Peh and I got those subjects. Don't scare. I don't have a beard, I don't have a hat, I know the whole thing anyway. That's what we're trying to do over here, trying to elevate over here. We go further. If you look at all the Mishnayot, you don't find Mishnayot that talk about Hanukah. There's not one Mishnah that teaches the laws of Hanukah. There's a reference to Hanukah in the Mishnah and Baba Kama, but that's not the source of Hanukah. Why? Why did Rabbeinu HaKadosh, one Mishnah, this Mishnah on Purim, on Masechet Megillah? Why couldn't there be Masechet Hanukah? Why not? A lot of laws, and there's a couple of pages of Gemara over there, there's something to talk about. The first holiday that was really from the Hachamim is Hanukah. The first rabbinical institution over here is Hanukah. The Yevanim were fighting Torah Sheba'al Peh. The Yevanim were fighting against all this over here. So Rabbeinu HaKadosh leaves out Hanukah from Mishnayot to keep something pure Torah Sheba'al Peh. What better holiday to be pure Torah Sheba'al Peh in its truest sense than Hanukah? It's still in the old custom of not reading it, it's Baal Peh. It's really Baal, no right. Everything else you're right. But Hanukah, which was the holiday, they try to take away Torah Sheba'al Peh, they try to dilute the Hakamim. They try to tell us, your rabbis know nothing, listen to Aristotle, listen to Plato, listen to Socrates. We know. We have our own intellect. So they said, you know what? The Rabbeinu HaKadosh says, we're going to leave Hanukah in the pure form. It's going to really remain Torah Sheba'al Peh. There's a question that the Beit Yosef has, Rabbi Yosef Karo. Famous question he has, you all know it. Why do we celebrate Hanukah for 8 days? We should only celebrate it for 7. He bases his question on the fact that they found a Pach Shemen that was able to last for 1 day. And that Pach Shemen lasted for 8 days. So it was a miracle, 8 days. But he says, no, the first night there was no miracle. The first night, they had enough for 1 night. That was expected. The miracle was the subsequent 7 days. So he has a question, why then do we celebrate Hanukah 8 days? There was no miracle on the first night. You know how many answers there are to this question? There are over 100 answers to this question. There's even a book. And I'm thinking to myself, so when did you ever see in the history where you ask a question and all of a sudden 100 answers? That happened. If you get 2 answers, you're already, wow, great. You're thrilled with life. 2 answers, 3 answers, 100 answers to a question. Well, that's the whole spirit of this holiday. What is Torah Sheba'al Peh? Torah Sheba'al Peh is Hachamim coming with their interpretations to interpret Torah. Hanukah is the holiday of Hidushim, of explaining the Pesukim of God. This is the way I see it. This is the way I understand. This is my Hidush. This is what this word is. That's the whole holiday. So it's in the spirit of the holiday that when you have a question regarding Hanukah, how much answers, how much pilpul, how much understanding, that's the spirit of the holiday. To have many interpretations on a question, that's the spirit of Gemara. How Rav Sheshat looked at it, how Rav Hesda looked at it, how Abaye looked like it, how Rabbi looked at it, how Rab and Shemuel and Bet Hillel and Bet Shammai. It's all different opinions, different approaches, different understandings. All interpretations. That's Hanukah. It's a rabbi called Rabbeinu Yonah. Rabbeinu Yonah has a little chapter in his book on Sha'arei Teshuvah. He talks about mitzvot de Rabbanan, rabbinical mitzvot. And he says 2 interesting things about rabbinical mitzvot that you all have to know. Number 1, he says, Yesh ofanim, there are situations, and I'm quoting, Asher bahem divrei sofrim hamurim yoter midivrei Torah. Sometimes rabbinical enactments are even more stringent than Torah. And he brings a pasuk that even says, or it's a statement from the Hachamim in Gemara Berachot, Kol ha'over al divrei Hachamim hayav mitah. If you go against the words of the rabbis, hayav mitah. Certain laws in the Torah, if you go against them, you get some lashes and you go home. You get a little punishment, you get a smack on the wrist. You go against the rabbinical enactment, mitah b'dei shamayim. Wow. Very serious. That's one of the negative aspects of Rabbanan. And then he gives a positive aspect, and he says a line over here, Ki tovim dodecha miyayin. What is this referring to? Your enactments are even more delicious than wine. Havivim devrei sofrim yoter miyena shel Torah. Rabbinical enactments are even more sweet than the wine of Torah. On one hand, the rabbi tells us, be careful, Rabbanans will kill you, hayav mitah if you go against them. And what does he mean over there? What Rabbeinu Yonah means over there is, when we have mitzvot de Rabbanan, when the rabbis come along through their interpretation, they enact something. And one comes along like the Greek says, Hachamim, it's not from God. This is from, what do the Hachamim know? I'm willing to accept biblical enactments. I'm like a tziduki. I'm a beit tosi. I'm a purist. I like to follow what the book says. Don't tell me the Hacham or the rabbi. What do the rabbis know? So anybody that comes with that type of degrading, and that type of belittling, and that type of scoffing, and saying, well, Rabbanan, I don't go with that. Hayav mitah. We're not talking about a guy, he doesn't follow the law because he didn't know the law, he made a mistake in the law. The hayav mitah of rabbinical law is when one comes blatantly on purpose and says, I'm not interested in rabbinical law. And that's the mityavnim. Those Jews that became assimilated in the times of the Greek, that fell for that philosophy, that don't get swayed after their interpretation, they're only human beings, hayav mitah. And it should be pointed out, those mityavnim later on formed the groups of Siddukim and Beit Tosim. So that's just the same head. What does the rabbi mean that rabbinical enactments are even sweeter than Torah? I'll give you an example. A lot of the rabbinical laws by following them, you're really portraying the fear of heaven that you have. What are rabbinical enactments? Most of them are set to preserve the Torah law. Torah law says you can go up to here. The rabbis were scared. So they come along and build a fence and say, no, you can't go up to here, you can only go up to here. One that follows rabbinic law is really showing the fear of heaven that he has, that he's scared to break Torah law. By following the Rabbanan, you're really displaying your love for Torah and fear of God. I once went to a museum. It's called the Norman Rockwell Museum. It's in Stockbridge, Massachusetts. What is it over there? I'm not recommending you go there, of course. We went there. And it has, Norman Rockwell was a artist. And have all his work on the walls over there. So I was standing there and I walked up to one of the pieces over there to take a closer look. And all the alarms went off in the place. Sirens. 2 security guards came. They got me on both sides. They pulled me back. I said, fellas, what's going on over here? What did I do? He said, no, you went over the imaginary line. He says, we don't want you to get too close. You went past the line, security reasons. We don't want anybody breathing on the art or looking at it, maybe the rays from your eyes. If we let people look at it from so close, in 500 million years we might lose some of the ink off the paper. I said, okay, I thought to myself, and I told my wife, I said, imagine that. Asu siyag Norman Rockwell. To them, this is an important painting over here. And therefore they make a fence. They're not telling you can't touch it. That's not only can't you touch it, you can't come within 10 feet of it. Why? Fear. It's important. Be careful. We're warning. I said, that's what the mitzvot of the Rabbanan are. The mitzvot of the Rabbanan are really a way of screaming to the world and saying, Torah law is very important. And therefore, stand back. So when you're fulfilling rabbinic law, what you're really showing God is, you are fearful of Him. You're scared of His law. It's like a father tells his son, I don't want you crossing the street. I don't want you standing in the gutter. Find that. So where does the kid stand? Right on the curb, as close as he can get, balancing himself on the sidewalk and the gutter. What's the father do to the kid? Smacks him. It's no, I'm not in the gutter. No, I don't mean that. When I tell you don't go in the street, I want you to stand 5 feet away from the street. That's the fence. That's the Rabbanan. Torah says don't walk in the street. Hakamim come along and say stand 5 feet away from the street. Because the street is a serious offense. So following rabbinic law definitely is a symbol of Yirat Shamayim. That's what he means when he says Halivim Devrei Sofim Yoter Miyenah Shel Torah. The Gemara Shabbat says, what's the beracha you make on Ner Hanukah? Ner Hanukah is mitzvah from the rabbis. What's the beracha you make? Gemara says, Asher Tiddeshanu b'mitzvotav v'sivanu la'adlik Ner Hanukah. Comes the Gemara and says, what do you mean? You commanded us to light Ner Hanukah? Ve'echat sivanu. Where did God command us? Not written in the Torah. So how could you say Vitzivanu? A very strong question. Anybody know the answer to this question? I mean, we make the berachot every year. Nobody ever asked me this question. You want to try, Isaac? You know it. Oh, okay. Don't get cocky now. Just give us the answer. Yeah. Oh, you're a smart man. This is exactly what Rav Aviyah said. Rav Aviyah Amar Milot Asur. Torah says, Lo tasur min hadavar asher yagidu lecha yamin u'smol. Do not sway from the words of the rabbis, right or left. You have an obligation to listen to the rabbis. That obligation is from Torah. So it comes out very interesting. Really the beracha on the menorah should have been, Asher kiddishanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu l'shmoa l'hachamim. What's the commandment over here? The commandment is listen to the rabbis. That's the biblical source here. So let's get to the point. Asher kiddishanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu l'shmoa l'derabanan. So comes the Rambam and explains what the beracha is. Chot berachot. The Rambam says that actually what the beracha is like this. Asher kiddeshanu b'mitzvotav. God, you sanctified us with the mitzvot. And one of those mitzvot was, do not sway from the words of the rabbis. V'tzivanu, and the rabbis commanded us. Ladlik der Hanukah. Amazing. Which is when you're making a beracha on a mitzvah d'Rabbanan, you're actually making a testimony. God, you love the rabbis. You chose the Hachamim. You empowered them. Asher kiddishanu b'mitzvotav. As a matter of fact, one of the mitzvot in your Torah tell us to pay close obedience to their law. V'tzivanu, and they commanded us. The rabbis commanded us. What better holiday than Hanukah to say this beracha with kavanah? You should always make kavanah berachot. But Hanukah is the holiday where we almost lost that. Hanukah is the holiday where we almost became secular Jews. Secular Jew meaning your Jewish library consists of a Bible, an encyclopedia, and maybe some books from Shakespeare, and maybe an English dictionary, and some books on art. That's what a secular Jew is. His secular library is 10 times bigger than his Jewish library. Because his Jewish library just consists of one book called the Bible. That's what the Greeks wanted. Don't start with rabbinical interpretations, Torah Shemal Peh. Open the book yourself and, read as you interpret it. Don't get bogged down with old Gemara and Torah Shemal Peh. On Hanukah, that was preserved. Hashmonaim were able to rededicate the menorah, and they plugged it back in where it works now. Where the Kiddusha of Torah Shemal Peh is rebuilt in the world. What better holiday than to make a beracha like that with kavanah? God, Asher kiddeshanu b'mitzvotav, you have written in your Torah, do not sway from their words. If they say right is left, left is right, v'tzivanu, and the rabbis commanded us to like this. With your permission, on your word. An interesting law in Shulchan Aruch. The law tells us that the leftover oil on the 8th night, that leftover oil, Shulchan Aruch writes, make a bonfire. You can't use it for personal use. You have to just light it. Let it burn out. Guy can't come along and say, well, I got some leftover oil from Hanukah in the cups where I lit. I want to use it for some salad. You can't use it. Or guy says, you know what? I want to lubricate my hinges on my door. I take some of the oil from the Hanukah, pour it on there, like WD-40, whatever. Lubricate. Or I want to rub my hands with it. You can't do that. Why? Because there's Kiddusha to that oil. You hear what's being said? Once the rabbis tell us to light menorah, all of a sudden that oil becomes kadosh. Who puts the Kiddusha? What, a human being now could go start putting Kiddusha on this? Hakamim could start saying this oil is kadosh. Torah, I understand. Shabbat, Kodesh, holidays, fine, it's Kiddusha. From here you see when the Hakamim established the holiday, they were so powerful they were able to create from regular oil, kadosh oil. where now the remnants, you have to put in guineas out, you have to burn them. To the extent the Mishnah Berurah goes so far to say, and this is quite amazing, that you can't even put it back in the bottle with intent to use it for next year. Say, well, I'll use it for the mitzvah. I'm not going to use it for, I'll use it for a mitzvah. I'll put it back in the bottle. Next year I'll light my menorah. Why? Because you might forget during the interim of the year and use it for personal use. Look how much we love the Hachamim. The whole thing is from the rabbis. Already we're making a gezerah. To show you the loyalty that we have to rabbinical enactments. There's an interesting midrash. The midrash says, "Ubayom hashemini nasi livnei menashe." You know, on the Hanukah we're going to read the korbanot that the different presidents of each tribe brought on the inauguration of the Mishkan. Every day, another tribe brought a korban, the exact same korban. It says, on the 8th day, Nasi Livnei Menashe. And the Midrash gets all excited. 8th day, Nasi Livnei Menashe. Unbelievable. They come along and say, look at the power of the Hachamim. This pasuk over here shows us the power of Hachamim. Amazing. Again, what does it say? On the 8th day, Menashe came along with his tribe and brought a sacrifice. It's the same sacrifice that was brought on the 7th day by a different tribe, and the 6th day, and the 5th day, and the 4th. Why all of a sudden the Midrash goes wild? On the 8th day, Menashe, unbelievable, the power of the rabbis. And the Midrash comes along and says, I'll show you the greatness here. Sha'arei Yaakov v'sha'ah shebirech Menashe ve'Ephraim. Remember Yaakov blessed his two children, Menashe and Ephraim? Who was the oldest son? Who was the oldest son? Menashe. Who should have got, according to logic, the blessing of the older? Menashe. Makiti, what does it say, however? Vayasim et Ephraim lefnei Menashe. Yaakov makes a call here, a rabbinical call. Yeah, I know he's the older one. I know according to law he's supposed to go first. But Yaakov, as the chief rabbi of his time, makes a rabbinical psak and decides what? Ephraim is older in level and he deserves the primary beracha. He switches his hand. That's Yaakov Abinu using his rabbinical wisdom there. That's Torah Sheba'al Peh. God didn't tell him to do that. This is Yaakov using his sevara and saying this case is different. This case Ephraim is supposed to. Does God agree with him? Comes in Midrash and says, Vayasim et Ephraim lefnei Menashe asa hakatan kodem lagadol. And God agreed with him. You know when we see God agreed with him? Ematai, the korbanot hanesim. When it came to the presidents bringing the sacrifice. Gentlemen and ladies, who brought the sacrifice on the 7th day? On the 7th day, Ephraim brought the sacrifice. On the 8th day, Menashe brought the sacrifice. When God made the list of who's going to bring the sacrifices, who does he put first? Ephraim. Who does he put second? Menashe. Who's God follow? Hacham said it, Yaakov said that's what he says, Ephraim comes before. God subjugates his own idea to the words of the Hachamim. Imagine that. Yaakov goes there, HaKadosh Baruch Hu mekayem. Yaakov says, this is what's true. God says, fine, you want to go that way? I agree with you, you're right, amen. And God writes it in the Torah. 8th day, Menashe. The older brother goes second. Do you think for a moment, wouldn't that be a great coincidence if we would read this parasha on Hanukah? Wouldn't that be probably the greatest parasha to read? That's the whole story of Hanukah. Power of the Hachamim, Matityahu and his children, they brought back Torah Sheba'al Peh, they did not let the Torah be forgotten, they saved Jewish tradition, oral law, Gemara, they preserved Judaism authentically. Do you know what we read on the 8th day of Hanukah? You know what the reading is? Ubayom Hashemini, on the 8th day, Nasi Livnei Menashe. We read this exact reading. After the whole holiday, where you're drilling that in your brain, the importance of the menorah and its significance to Torah Sheba'al Peh, the importance of the Hachamim and their institutions. 8 nights you said, God, you empowered the rabbis through Lo Tasur to make laws. And then on the highlight, the 8th day, the Hazan gets up and says, on the 8th day, Menashe brought a korban. Yishtabach Shemo. Yaakov's psak becomes divine. Yaakov's psak becomes Torah. Ephraim is day 7. Menashe follows, he's day 8. What better parasha can we read on Hanukah to bring out this point? Once we got this far, a lot of keys on the keychain. We're just going to open doors all over the place. And again, this is a type of class, again, where you have to let it digest and let it sink in. It's a new concept for the sake. We're taking risks. Or we are relying on your maturity to understand these subjects and appreciate them. Famous the Ramban writes in Vaychi, and I quote, on the pasuk Lo Yasur Shevet Mihuda, Yaakov Avinu makes a proclamation. The tribe of Yehuda will be designated for history, for kingship. All Jewish kings will come from the tribe of Yehuda. And the Ramban writes, Ki Yaakov hemlich Shevet Yehuda al Echad. Yaakov pronounced that the tribe of Yehuda is going to be designated for kingdom. Vehorish li Yehuda mimshala al Yisrael. And he inherited kingdom to Yehuda. Ve'amar lo yasur. It will not leave his tribe. Lirmos, to hint to us. Ki yimloch shevet acher al Yisrael. Yes, originally the kingdom will start from another tribe, from Binyamin. That was King Shaul. But once it transfers to Yehuda, it will never leave. Lo yasur, it will never leave. Once he gets it, once David becomes king, kingship will never leave the family. This is Yaakov's proclamation. He decides and he coronates the tribe of Yehuda. Comes to Ramban and says, "V'ka'asher eriku Yisrael la'amlik alehem mish'ar shevatim." The Jews didn't follow this. The Jews started to appoint kings from other tribes. Melech achar melech, king after king. Ve'lo hayu hozrin el malchut Yehuda. They don't go back to the tribe. Avru al devrei hazaken. They went against the words of the old man Yaakov. V'ne'anshu b'hem. They got punished. V'zeh haya onesh hashmonaim. Hashmonaim, these great rabbis that we just talked about that saved Jewish heritage. Ramban says they were punished later on in history. Shemalchu bebayit sheni. After the victory, they appointed themselves as kings over the Jewish people. They were not from the tribe of Yehuda. They were from the tribe of Levi. Ki hayu hasidei alyon. No question, they were righteous Hasidim. Ve'ilmalehem, were it not for them, nishtakhat Torah v'mitzvot miYisrael. There would be no, if we have Torah today, it's because of the Hashmonaim. If we have Gemara today and rabbinical interpretations because of them. Even though they were great, ne'enshu onish gadol. A great punishment befell them. Ki arba b'nei Hashmonai hazaken hasidim hamolchim zeh achar zeh. They appointed kings of the Hashmonai family. In kol gevuratam v'atzlachtam naflu biyad oibehem bechanim. They all died. There was no remnants from the Hashmonai. Nobody was able to say in the future years, I'm a descendant from Hashmonai. Impossible, you're a liar. There's no more Hashmonai family. They were eradicated off the face of the earth. Why such a strong punishment? They weren't the first. The Ramban says, Melech, HaMelech, HaMelech. When it comes to the Hashmonaim, he says, they got Onish Gadol, terrible punishment, eradicated, destroyed. Why? Because they took the kingdom for themselves. You know what the explanation is, Rabotai? Hashmonaim, what happened to you? You were the ones that fought for the power of the rabbis. It was you that went against Yevani influence. When they were saying, leave Torah Shebaal Peh, leave authentic Judaism, you were the ones that held the flag high, lit the menorah again, regained the Beit HaMikdash, brought back Torah Shebaal Peh to the Jewish people. You instilled in the hearts of Jews loyalty to their rabbis, to their leaders. You now are going to make yourself king. You're breaking the rule. What about Yaakov? Yaakov made a rabbinical enactment. Lo yasu shevet mihuda. You're from Levi. You broke the rule. All your preaching, all your ideas, now out the window. Now gone. You forgot what you fought for all your lives. Now you're not listening to what Yaakov said. The punishment was grave. Because they understood. They fought for it. God had to punish them. God had to punish them seriously. Otherwise, all their fighting would be in vain. All what they stood for would be in vain if God would not punish them. The people would say, why God why you get punished? Because they went against the Hachem. If God would let them slide, then already their lesson becomes diluted. They went against the rabbis. Nothing happened to them. What's so bad? God has to go out of his way to punish them more severely to keep their enactment intact. They made the law. They have to be the most careful not to break the law. And therefore, we could say God did a favor to them and to us by punishing them severely to keep that enactment that they made, looking at Hachamim in the eyes that we have. Rabotai, in conclusion, I want to tell you a hadith. I think it's an amazing concept. I said it over today to some of the rabbis in the Korah. They said, no, you're not going to say this over tonight. I'm going to say it over. Too deep for them. They're not going to follow it. They'll follow it. There's a famous story told over. There's a rabbi called the Tzemach Tzedek. Tzemach Tzedek had a student called Rabbi Yosef Riblin. The rabbi had an ailment, Rabbi Yosef Riblin, and he came to his rabbi, the Tzemach Tzedek from Lubavitch. And he came to his rabbi and he said, Rabbi, I have an ailment, do you have advice for me? And the rabbi said, yes, my advice to you is you have to move to Eretz Yisrael. He wanted him to pray, actually. He's looking for maybe a recommendation to a doctor. Move to Eretz Yisrael. He moves to Eretz Yisrael, and sure enough, he becomes healed. Couldn't imagine. The doctors already wrote him off. Said he was going to die. So he comes back to the Tzemach Tzedek and says, what's this trick? Is it the air of Israel? Is it the oranges? Is it the pizza? What is it? That I moved to Israel all the time, I got healthy. And the rabbi says to him, no, not that. So when you came to me you told me a certain ailment in your body that's discussed in halakha. There's certain ailments in animals that some rabbis hold, an ailment like that, the animal cannot live for more than 12 months. Other rabbis argue and say, no, those type of ailments they can. Your ailment is a machloket between Maran, Rabbi Yosef Karo, and Rabbi Moshe Isserlish. In Europe, where we live, we're under the opinion of Rabbi Moshe Isserlish, and he says if an animal would have this ailment, he dies. In Israel, they follow Maran, Rabbi Yosef Karo. He holds the animal lives. So in Israel, where he says there's life for you. Here, Rama says it dies, you die. Being under the jurisdiction of the Hacham, who has a ruling, changes the nature. Once the Hacham says it, that becomes the reality. That becomes the nature. You live, because Maran said an animal lives. That's not an ailment according to Maran. According to Rama, it's an ailment. You better get out of town. Die. With their words, they create the nature. They change the nature. I want to say tonight a little deeper. According to what I saw in the Sefer, we'll finish with this. I know I'm going overtime tonight. We're not going to charge anybody extra tonight. Don't worry. There's a Hazon Ish. This book, Emunam B'Tachon. You know, there's a law in the Torah that says you're not allowed to take bribery. You're a judge, don't take bribery. Ki hashochad ya'aver. Bribery blinds the eyes of judges. You can't give an objective ruling. Everybody understand this law? Very simple, of course. Everybody understands. Give the judge $100 already. He has Benjamin Franklin in his eyeballs. He can't see past the money. Right? Comes the Hazon Ish and says, "Has v'shalom," and I quote. He says, "Chovat talmid laha'amin." It is incumbent upon the student to believe. This is coming from the Hazon Ish in his book Emunah and B'Tachon Perek Gimal Ot Lamed. Listen closely. Chovat talmid laha'amin is incumbent upon the student to believe. Ki en negi'ah ba'olam. There is no prejudice in the world. Ba'alat koach, that is powerful enough, including money. Lahatot lev hacham la'avet mishpat. Nothing could sway a true Hacham from justice. Fact. Hachamim cannot be swayed. Give the guy $1 million. It's incumbent upon the student to realize justice cannot be swayed. And he proves it. His proof is rabbis are allowed to make rulings on their own property. For example, a rabbi makes shahita. He's allowed to rule on his own animal. Is it kosher? Is it not kosher? If it's not kosher, he loses the whole animal. Isn't that a prejudice? A rabbi is allowed to make rulings regarding his wife's status of nidah or not. Isn't that a prejudice? A rabbi is allowed to make rulings on his hametz. Is it considered hametz sha'ala avar ala pesach or not? Even though he stands to lose a lot. What do you see from there? The rabbi could be an ani marud. He only has one cow in his flock. He slaughters it. We trust him to decide whether it's kosher or not. If it's not kosher, that's it. It doesn't matter. Hazon Ish, there is no prejudice that can sway Hachamim's mind. He says, you can ask me a question. You can ask me a question because it says, in the court of Jewish law, there used to be a special court that used to sit down to decide whether there's going to be a Jewish leap year or not. And the law says a Kohen Gadol is not allowed to sit on that court. Why? Because the Kohen Gadol is against leap years. He's prejudiced. Why is he against leap years, the Kohen Gadol? Because if you make a leap year, Kippur comes out late. And it's cold that time of year already. It's a month later, it's cold, and he has to go into the mikveh 5 times that day. And he comes out, has to step on the cold floor. He don't want Kippur to come out. He'd rather Kippur come out beginning of September, not the end of the beginning of October. So he has a prejudice. He can't sit on the court. What do you mean? You just said there's no prejudice, there's no shora'at. So comes the Hazon Ish and says like this. You're right. But in a court, which this is a court, Torah says judges in the court cannot take bribery. Even though the judge says, I know I am of those hakamim that do not get swayed. And he says they're out there. It's possible to take a bribe and not get swayed. But he comes along and says, once the Torah says bribery can sway your judgment, the nature of man changes that he gets swayed. The Torah's law changes the nature. Which means, normally without Torah law, you'd say yes, the Kohen can sit on the court. He has a price, doesn't matter. He'll be able to judge you righteously. But since the Torah says in court, bribery can sway, a rabbi cannot come along and say, well, I'm not sick with that. I can control that. No. Once Torah law writes you will get swayed, the nature of man becomes you get swayed. The nature of man is decided by Torah law. Once they say it, that becomes the nature. Unbelievable. Which is, normally you'd say, no, man should not get affected. Just like he doesn't get affected when he's giving a ruling to his wife or ruling to his cow. He shouldn't get affected in court. It's a difference. Justice is justice. But Torah says in court, bribery blinds. Not me. Once we say it blinds you also. Your nature will get blind. God will remove wisdom from you. I'm going to come tonight and say that not only in Torah law this is true, but in rabbinical law also. The Gemara Shabbat says, the rabbis made a law. You can't read by the light of a candle on Friday night. If you want to open up the Hamasi after dinner, sit by the Friday night candles, you can't do that. Why? Because you might come to flicker the candle. Rabbinical enactment. What would he write? The candle might start to dim. You might start playing with it. You might start flickering. Rabbis say you can't read. Came a rabbi called Rabbi Ishmael ben Elisha, and he says, Ani ekra filate. Oh, that's the problem. I'll read, and I won't come to flicker. Gemara says he went out Friday night. He opened the sefer to the light of the Friday night candles, and guess what happened? He flickered. His reaction is, Kama gedola divrei hachamim shehayu omrim lo yikra leor hanez. How great were the words of the rabbis that said do not read. You know what he was saying? He was coming along and saying, I knew myself to be a man that this law doesn't apply. Fact. I knew myself that I could read and not flicker. I'm on the Badrega. I know that myself, personally, I would not come to flicker. But you know what I learned today? How great the words of the rabbi were. Once the rabbi said, if you read, you might come to flicker, nature of man became, no matter who you are, if you read, you will come to flicker. And that was his reaction. How great are the words of the rabbi? Once they said it, that becomes the nature of man, no matter who you are. Before the Torah writes that bribery is forbidden, even the rabbi could take some money and give a fair ruling on a court. Rabbi could take a gift, give a fair ruling before the Torah comes. Once Torah says bribery is forbidden, now the nature of man becomes that when you get a bribery, you don't have wisdom anymore. Shouldn't be that way. But the nature is decided by the Torah law. Here the Rabbi the Bishma says, now I see nature is even defined by rabbinical law. Without that law, I said, I can be by the light of the camp, no problem, it's not going to affect me. And he was right. But his Hidush was Kama Gedolah Devrei Hachamim. Once the Rabbi said it, that's a concern. Look, I myself, I was immune to this one. I sat down and I did it. Because they said it. They create the nature. Hachamim come along in our generation and scream against television. Call the psychologist, come along, it's not so bad. It's good, you need it, it's fine. Influence, not so terrible. It doesn't matter. Once the Hachamim say it's bad, it's bad. The nature of the item becomes bad. Hanukah, the message is to reaffirm our commitment to the Hachamim. Not only of the previous generations, but of our generation. To recommit our respect and honor and subjugation to their words, to their enactments, to their gezerot. They're not, the rabbis, they don't know, that was fighting, that a certain reverence to them. When you're lighting your menorah, these ideas should go to your mind. What the menorah represents Jewish tradition. Pure Torah as explained by the Chachmei Talmud. Remember that Moshe used to stand in front of the menorah in order to understand Torah Shebichtav. Remember Aaron used to light the menorah every day because that was his power of Torah Shebichtav. Hashmonaim waged war to stick up for Torah Shebichtav for the rabbis. God says, do not sway from their words. Yaakov makes a decision. God says, Eifnei min Asher, you go after Ephraim. The older is the younger. Yaakov's ruling. Yaakov says, kings come from Yehudah. That's the rule now. It wasn't from God. That's Yaakov's rule. Hashmonaim, you broke the rule. You don't listen to the old man. You're out. Hanukah is the holiday to come back and say, Kama Habibah Devrei Hachamim. How beautiful are your words, Hachamim. To recommit ourselves to the study of Talmud, to the study of their words, to recommit ourselves. We talk about Hanukah vacation. And all the holidays to take a vacation from Torah, it's not Hanukah, on the contrary. Hanukah, if you learn 1 hour, you have to start learning 2 hours a day. To redevote yourself to Torah Sheba'al Peh. How do we commit ourselves? We're going to spin some dreidels and eat some latkes? That's how we dedicate ourselves to Torah Sheba'al Peh? The only way you can dedicate yourself to Torah Sheba'al Peh is learn Torah Sheba'al Peh and instill in ourselves and our family fear of rabbis, love of Hachamim. And that's why it says in Gemara, one that is careful lighting the menorah has children that are Talmidei Hachamim. Because that's the whole concept. And B'ezrat Hashem, if we can take this lesson to heart, then already we can be very proud and very confident that there will be preservation for the Jewish people. So long as there's Torah Sheba'al Peh, so long as we have a book to interpret our law and understand our religion, the legacy of Judaism continues. Judaism is able to perpetuate. Once Torah Sheba'al Peh is gone, then there is no more authentic Judaism. We as Orthodox Jews today represent the last flicker of unadulterated pure Judaism. Because we're loyal to both Torot, Shebichtav and Sheba'al Peh. We're loyal to our rabbis. We're loyal to their interpretations. We have reverence for them. We have to just cling on to that a little more. And we commit ourselves in Hanukah. And B'ezrat Hashem, like Borei Olam made miracles for our people, B'yamim Ahem, He should make the same miracles for us. Baruch Adonai le'olam, amen v'amen. Avi Haragam Gasher Omer, Asa Kadosh Baruch Hu Zekodesh Selechicha, Shemana Toshemat, Allah Chafez Semat Zedko Yedir Torah ve'Yadir.